Bring in Washington Examiner political and investigative reporter Sarah Bedford. Sarah, this president is in a difficult situation, isn't he, with regards to his own party?
He's in a really difficult spot, John, and I think that's why you're starting to see his approval ratings dip even further right now. He has a significant chunk of his party that doesn't really want to see any friendliness toward Israel at all. They don't want to see any material support to Israel. They really don't want Israel to be able to defend itself at all against Hamas. And, you know, the Biden administration has been trying to thread the needle, being really careful not to alienate that part of the party too much. But at the same time, his willingness to entertain those progressives who are, frankly, anti-Israel has alienated then the broader swath of Americans who are pro-Israel and who want to see Israel empowered. 55% of all Americans, regardless of party, want to see Israel supported right now. And so because of that, I think Biden administration is really losing support both from the middle and from the left. And that's a really tough spot for a president who was already unpopular before this conflict broke out. There
are the numbers from the latest Fox News poll. 39% of Americans approve of the handling of the president, approve of the president's handling. 55% disapprove of his handling of the war. And among Democrats, we have a second slate that is pretty interesting. It shows that only about a third of Democrats approve of the job the president is doing. When you throw in self-styled or self-identified liberals, only 40% disapprove, I should say. And under the age of 35, 69% of those polled say they disapprove of the job the president is doing. It's pretty tough to win re-election when you've got numbers like that on a major issue, Sarah.
That's right. And it's tough because there are different concerns underpinning those two sets of numbers that you showed. With Democrats, and especially with younger Democrats, you have a really anti-Israel sentiment driving that, right? You have younger Democrats concerned about the level of deference that they've seen the Biden administration give to the Israelis. On the other side of that, when you're talking about independents who have swung against Biden at this point 2-1 in some polls, they're concerned about the amount of space that the Biden administration and Democrats have given to the anti-Israel crowd. They haven't really spoken out against the squad in Congress, for example. They haven't really shown the sort of stalwart support for the Israelis that a lot of moderates and independents would like to see the Biden administration give. They've entertained the sort of staff mutinies in the State Department and in the White House that we've seen, and they've signaled an openness to calling for a ceasefire and for trying to limit Israel's ability to defend itself. So when the Biden administration has two sets of bad numbers and correcting the underlying factors behind one of those numbers would make the other set of numbers even worse. It's really a lose-lose situation for the White House right now.
It is thought that Iran allowed this or encouraged this Hamas atrocity on October 7th to try to torpedo the Abraham Accords signed during the Trump administration. When you look at the head-to-head numbers, the average polling of President Biden versus former President Trump, Biden is a couple of points behind at this point. 44.9% is the average versus 47.2 for the former president. Just give us your thoughts on that, Sarah.
Yeah, it's pretty clear that Donald Trump put Iran in a box that the Obama administration was unwilling to do, and that Biden has signaled a continuing unwillingness to do, right? I mean, the Obama administration empowered Iran in a lot of ways, and when Trump came into office, he promised to undo some of that. He pulled the U.S. out of the JCPOA. He refused to unfreeze any of the Iranian assets that were being held in South Korea. Biden allowed Iran to access that money. He made moves that were seen as appeasement to try to coax Iran back into that nuclear deal, something that was clearly not going to happen. And you have seen an emboldened Iran in the Middle East, and that has been destabilizing. I think even a casual observer of those things can see that the Middle East is a lot less stable now under President Biden than it was under Trump. And the same can really be said about regions all across the world, including Europe, Russia, and Ukraine, and China. So the average voter can see that things were more stable under Trump.
And Israel especially is paying the price Sarah Bedford from the Washington Examiner.